In some ways, Mulaka reminds me of PS2 action-adventure games. Simple, some exploring, collectibles, combat arenas, and boss fights that bookend each level. There are some aspects in this game that I do enjoy, but sadly I found this game to continually be pushing me away as I continue to play it. Now, on to the review. Let's focus on what I liked first. I enjoyed the simple visual style along with the combat. The first few levels continually add new enemies to fight. Each have their specific way to defeat them, whether by dodging a rush attack, flipping them on their sides, throwing a spear at them. The combat is fun, with the game allowing you to do some basic light and heavy attacks. You do earn a few more moves throughout the game, but you'll be using the same moves that you started with throughout most of your experience. The levels themselves are open areas that have their own collectibles to find. Essentially, each area breaks down into the same formula of fighting some enemies within combat arenas, which then helps you get some keys, and then you use those keys to open up a door to then fight a boss. For the most part, I enjoyed the boss fights in this. They had their own ins and outs and were big in size, and at times this really added to the fun. The game provides you with some potions that will aid you in your fight, with health potions, bombs, and rage potions. Once unlocked, you'll acquire those potions by gathering herbs. Now let's get into the areas that I wasn't a fan of. The repetition really sets in for me by level 4 and 5. Like I said before, the levels kind of go like this. You go to a new area, fight a bunch of enemies within combat arenas, you then get some keys, you use those keys to open up the boss area, then you fight the boss. Then you move to another area, you fight a bunch of enemies in those combat arenas, you get some keys, you fight a boss. Then you go to another area, you fight a bunch of enemies, and you get those keys, and you fight a boss. And you go to another area, you fight enemies, boss, blah, blah, blah. The repetition wouldn't be as noticeable or bad if the game had a compelling narrative and compelling combat to help the game. Look at a game like Bayonetta, God of War, Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden. They're all action games, and they all have combat arenas. But the big difference with those games is they have a dynamic combat system and upgrades, so that elevates itself from just being, oh, it's a combat arena, let me test out all these awesome moves. Mulaka does have some upgrades, but they're very basic, and unlockable combos and weapons would have improved the combat. Give me a variety of spears to earn, or say a sword. Mulaka does have a serviceable narrative, but nothing in there will get you emotionally attached or to care about anything. The combat desperately needs a lock-on button like in Zelda or Darksiders. At many times I felt like I was just swinging and trying to hit enemies, but I ended up hitting enemies, but not the specific enemies that I wanted to hit because I couldn't specifically target them, especially when they start grouping up. An optional lock-on would have really helped this aspect. What furthers the frustration with the combat are the enemies that grab you. There are these fat toads that will grab you with their tongue, and they can grab you many times. On top of this, they like to pair these toads with a big boss toad, which will then hit you with waves of water, so you have to contend with waves of water and these tongues from the other toads, and they just don't stop knocking you around everywhere. It just creates a really frustrating experience, especially with these enemies. On top of that, they like to throw a lot of variety with you when you're in the combat arenas. I like that, the different enemy types. The game kind of loses types. It starts forcing itself towards the end of the game where you're like, oh, we're fighting the same enemy that we fought in the beginning that was introduced, but it's like a different color now and has a slightly different aspect to it. But then there's another enemy that's really annoying because what it likes to do is send out these little stun blasts, and if it gets you, you're stuck. You can't really get out of it for a couple seconds. But if you have that toad coming at you from around the corner, he will be sure to grab you. I really hate those toads. The game does require some platforming, but without the basic ability to grab a ledge, it got annoying. There are fixed points in the game where you can use your panther ability to be able to jump on branches, but then the game wants you to turn into a bird sometimes to then glide to safety from this position. The problem is that the camera is done from a fixed camera angle while using the panther move. And then when you get out of it, you can control it, but the camera angle they decide to leave it at, it's just confusing. I thought I didn't have to turn into the bird. If the camera was shown from the back at this point, I could have seen, oh, I need to go forward. But the way they decided to do it, it showed from you facing your person. So then you're like, I don't know where I need to go. So that results in you falling down and repeating the whole process again. I do like that there are potions in the game. I like that you can get these things, they help you out in combat. But why do you have to pick up so many damn herbs to be able to make a potion? You get 4 different potions, so you have to pick up 4 different herbs, and it takes so long to get all those potions.
Ooh, a piece of candy. 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 Ooh, a piece of candy.
I did hit a point that was towards the end of the game that I couldn't go on anymore. Playing the game turned into a chore, and it wasn't fun. While I enjoyed the first few stages, I do think the level design and combat really overstays its welcome. More variety and upgrades were needed to improve these aspects of the game. The main musical theme is really good, and I do want to make mention of that here. But overall, I found this game to be very repetitive, and it loses its sense of fun pretty quickly. And at its core, because it is a video game, it needs to be fun. It needs to retain that aspect. Now, you can have different areas that help compensate each other. So you have a weak story, but you have good gameplay. The gameplay will kind of help push up the story a bit and hold up the game. Or vice versa, if you have okay gameplay, but a really strong narrative, that will also help your game. The problem is when you don't have either, you run into a huge issue. I do not recommend this game, but I have two other fellow YouTubers who have also played it and reviewed the game. So I'm going to link their stuff below and at the end of the video so you can check them out and get a different perspective on the game, because maybe you are interested in this. And if you are interested in this and you've played it and you've liked it more than me, let me know what you liked about it. And if you didn't like it, let me know what you didn't like about it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you next time.